So upcoming Friday nights, me and the degenerate boys that we are, we're coming back with the betting show.
You look at the way he bounces off tacklers, the way that he keeps his eyes downfield, his vision, his ability to find holes, his pass catching ability, right? Because he had.
In my lifetime, I'd put him at probably around the 2 area, with again the only other person up there being King Ricky.
Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams at the 111.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of B.S.ing Sports here on the B.S.ing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. This is our weekly Eagles recap show. We are not happy. Ryan is with me this week. Ryan, how are you doing?
About the Eagles, not happy.
Yeah. On a slightly brighter note, Phillies clinched the number 2 seed in the baseball. You know, got to talk about good things.
Let's start out with some positive, some good pitching early in postseason baseball. Tigers beat the Cheat Stros 3-1.
I do love to see that. But yeah, okay. It is an Eagles recap show. Let's do an Eagles recap. Just was not pretty.
Yeah, this was a clear-cut case of outmatched by a team that was better on the field and better on the sideline. They were more prepared. They were better coached. They were just a better football team. And yeah, that's really all that needs to be said about the overall game that I watched, is that it was embarrassing.
Z-Money, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you, bud, very much.
Yeah, and you know, we give you shit, so it's time to take our lumps.
I would agree. Yeah, so I mean, let's obviously we know they lost. Let's move into what maybe one of the reasons why I think they lost, or probably part of the reason they lost. Let's move into the head coach. Nick Sirianni openly admitted after the game that for whatever reason he didn't have the guys ready to go for Tampa. And my question here for you, Ryan, is what the hell?
My response to his "I didn't have the guys ready for Tampa" is 2 words: no shit. Like, I watched it. I saw it. You could see it right off the bat. Nobody wanted to be there. The game script sucked. The players didn't look motivated, however you want to cut it. I mean, Bill, let's be honest. You and I were texting all week, and we're like, yeah, let's just chalk this one up as a loss and go into the bye week. I would have rather seen some fight, you know, go down swinging maybe. They just gave up. They rolled over and died and said, oh, bye week's next week. So yeah, it was evident that Todd Bowles was the better coach that day, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, I 100% agree. First, 9 times out of 10, Todd Bowles is going to outcoach Nick Sirianni. E-Money, thank you very much for joining. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
E-Money, Z-Money.
I like E-Money better than Z-Money.
Yeah, go Birds for the E-Money. I appreciate you coming on here. Z-Money says the Eagles' downfall will forever put a smile on my face. Z-Money says he loves C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
I have an unfortunate piece of news for Cowboys fans, because that's not the first Cowboys fan I've heard that term from. Is like, the Eagles aren't in a downfall. Like, the reality is, when healthy, the Eagles are just a very good team and they will compete. Problem is, we weren't healthy, and I'll get a little bit more into more issues later. But the reality is, the Eagles aren't in a downfall. They're too good to be in a downfall, and the division isn't good enough, quite frankly.
Yeah, I said this in the chat with the old man the other day. Commanders are leading the division, and I said that wasn't on my bingo card.
Yeah, it's still too early, but god damn, does Cliff Kingsbury have that offense playing good.
Jaden Daniels looks like the real deal.
Jaden Daniels didn't throw a touchdown pass for 2 weeks, and he looked good.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when you don't turn the ball over, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. We'll get to him. But yeah, Sirianni, I gave my piece. It was very evident that he was the second best head coach in the game that day.
Yeah, okay, my piece is this. if the only job you have is to get the team motivated, because you don't take over defense anymore, you don't look over the offense anymore. It's obviously Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. You can tell me that you have plays in the playbook, fine, whatever. Probably those crappy wide receiver screens that I don't like. You could tell me all those wonderful and great things to, kind of boost your self-ego. But if your only job, which it is to get these guys ready to go on game day, you fucked up, buddy.
Your primary job as head coach is to be a leader of men, right? I think that the Andy Reids of the world, guys who are really good play designers, the Kevin O'Connells, the Kyle Shanahans, yes, they're good leaders of men, but the casual fan has been skewed by the fact that they're also like these offensive geniuses. No, you don't have to be an offensive or defensive guru to be a good head coach. You just have to be a great leader of men, right? That's why you have coordinators on the team. And right now, there's a lot of swirlings. He's not looking like a leader of men, and I am extremely curious as to what the message is over the bye week and how this is going to be handled.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts, but I want to talk about Jalen Hurts' interview post game. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, if you went back and watched it, or if you even saw clips of it. But when asked about Sirianni, he was, as he's been all offseason, very nonchalant in his response about Nick Sirianni. I'm thinking there's a disconnect there, and I'm thinking it's significantly bigger than either of them is playing out, which is fine. I mean, obviously you want to keep shit in-house, but the disconnect is now turning into issues. The disconnect is now affecting what the product is on the field, and the disconnect is causing the Eagles to be 2-2 at the bye week.
I'm very curious, what if it was always like that, because they say winning cures all, right? And the Eagles went to a Super Bowl in their second year together as head coach and quarterback. I'm curious as to if the dynamic was always like that and winning just happened to cure it. We really didn't see a whole lot of it because we even kind of saw some of it at the beginning of last year. And as you know, the Eagles went 10-1, but there were some questions as to how they were winning those football games. Now that they are, 1-6. They are 3-8 in their last 11 games, and Jalen Hurts has somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 turnovers in that span.
The only person who has more is Will Levis.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you. There's definitely something going on. I'm surprised. I mean, you may think that it's a little bit too early, but like you just pointed out, as talented as this roster is, 3-8 in your last 11. I'm surprised at the beginning of the bye week they didn't cut loose Nick Sirianni and just had Kellen Moore or Vic Fangio. What's up, Hussein? Thanks for coming back, bud. Being the interim head coach for the time being to maybe some sort of change fires the team up. You know what I mean?
I would be shocked if they did it over the bye week. I would be shocked, really. If this team goes 10-7, I'd be shocked. If they're at a 10-7 pace, I'd be shocked if they did it at all this year because at the end game, Sirianni does have a very good winning percentage in his time in Philadelphia. Actually has never had a losing season, but at some point, you have to use the eye test, right? Numbers can only get you so far. And you've got to look at the eye test. You've got to look at the product on the field and just say that this is not enough. This is not the direction we need to be heading. Our roster is too talented to be moving in this direction. We paid our quarterback too much money to be moving in this direction. We've got to change something. I don't know if that happens in season, but if they, are competing and looking like shit still, I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
I think they got to do absolutely. Hussein, you bring the questions on. We'll answer them. I like how you pointed out the eye test, right? The product you're putting out there is not the same product that was in 2022, the beginning of 2023. It's not the same product anymore, but the talent is it's the same talent. Actually, it increased in talent in most positions. Center, I would say, obviously we fell off a little bit, but Cam Jurgens has been playing pretty well. You obviously get better at the running back position. I think your third wide receiver is better than it was last year. For me, you're better talent-wise than you were last year, but the product is just not there. And again, to me, yes, obviously players got to go and play, but coaches got to coach. Hussein says, questions. I will be honest, for my week 5 quarterback, I have Kirk Cousins playing this week, and I don't trust me, should I pick up Deshaun Watson or the Mr. Red Rifle? I would absolutely go get Red Rifle.
Who does Dalton play this week? He's a pretty tough matchup, I think, from a fantasy perspective. Let me take a gander at that real quick. I haven't looked too hard into it. You know, Hussein, you were with us on Sunday. We generally answer these questions on Sundays, but let me take a look for you right now. Andy Dalton.
Z-Money does make a funny comment. The Eagles did have double-digit missed tackles in the first 17 minutes of the game. So, yes, I would agree that Mahomes has better tackle skills than the entire Eagles defense on Sunday. I do not deny that. Unfortunately, it cost him Rashee Rice, but is what it is. Going back to you.
That was a super L trade by me. But nonetheless, I'm probably riding with Kirk. Andy Dalton's in Chicago. Kirk Cousins is home against Tampa, which I know Jalen Hurts made them look really good, but I don't think that defense is that good. So I'm probably riding with Kirk Cousins this week.
Okay. Two different opinions, but there you go. Let's move on to Mr. Hurts. I think we've kind of sort of beat up Nick Sirianni enough.
Yeah.
Let's definitely not enough. Let's move on to Jalen Hurts, who also deserves a ton of blame. I want to talk about one play specifically, and it's the strip sack fumble, right? You move up in the pocket because you dodge the guy, and then you do nothing else to try and get away from him to throw the football, and he strip sacks you, and it's a turnover. How do you have 0% pocket awareness on a guy you literally just dodged to get away from a sack?
Also, let's not sit here and act like that the rush was coming. He sat back there and kind of held the ball for 3.5. There was time to get rid of that football after he stepped up, and I have no idea what he was doing. But there's one play in my mind that could have changed the entire momentum of this game because of how early it was. So the Buccaneers go right down the field and score. I text you guys, and I said, there's a mission in Call of Duty World at War called Little Resistance, and it was named after the Eagles defense. Nonetheless, there was one particular play on the first drive. The throw out of bounds to Saquon Barkley. I don't know if you got the chance to watch this, Bill. I know you were working. Yeah. Literally, all this throw had to do was be in the field of play, and it was at the very least a 45, 50-yard gain. And instead, this idiot threw the ball right out of bounds. I don't know what he was doing. Yes, he was on the move to his right, probably had a full second to throw before he could have set his feet and made that throw before, anybody was going to hit him. And he just throws the ball 5 yards out of bounds. The linebacker or corner watching Saquon Barkley kind of lost track of him, got caught staring at Hurts, and he ran right by him. And it was, I won't say an easy touchdown. It was an easy 40, 50-yard gain if you just throw the ball.
It's probably a touchdown. There's nobody behind him. He had gotten behind the defenders. Hurts saw him, and then he had a lot of errant throws in this game. He was high on a lot of them. He's lucky he didn't get picked off. He's high on a lot of them. First game in a long time, you can say Jalen Hurts didn't throw an interception, though. I will throw that little tidbit out there.
Yeah, the fumble that you referenced, stepping up in the pocket, hurt just as bad because we're driving down 2 scores. Yeah. Just got a huge blocked extra point, turned it back for 2. Made it a 2-touchdown game. We're moving the football, potentially going to make it a 1-score game, and you gave the game away. I don't know what we're doing here.
So I think this goes back to the disconnect between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. I said it last week to Timmy. Jalen Hurts looks like he doesn't want to run the ball anymore. And I'm curious if that's an internal thing. Is that a Jalen thing, or is that a Nick Sirianni in his ear thing? Hey, you really need to either get down or make a big play. Don't just run the ball. And I said this to Timmy last week, and I'm going to stand by it. You don't buy a Hellcat and run on 4 cylinders, right? If you're taking one complete aspect of Jalen Hurts' game away, again, coaches got to coach intelligently. If you're taking one entire aspect of Jalen Hurts' game away, of course he's going to become a poor one-dimensional quarterback because he was never a one-dimensional quarterback. He had to use his legs to create space, to create plays, to make confusion. And right now he's not doing it. And it's very easy for defenses to see okay, especially without 2 guys that we'll get into in a few minutes, especially without those guys on the field, this guy cannot beat us down the field. He just can't.
And if you notice, when he does not have the 2 guys that we're going to talk about later, a little bit later on the field, very, very hesitant with his throws, does not make his mind up. He is constantly clutching, constantly second guessing himself. He needs to have the same kind of confidence with his other receivers when he sees them open, that he actually probably like a little less confidence, because when A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are on the field, he makes some really poor decisions throwing into triple coverage. He probably trusts those guys a little too much. But you can't be double clutching. You can't be standing in the pocket. You got to make up your mind. You got to get rid of the football, right? This is the NFL. You get 2.5 to 3 seconds. I think his average time to pressure is like 3.11 seconds this year. It's like in the top 10 percentile in the NFL. And we're just not seeing the decisions being made. And I get that you're not as comfortable with those guys. But here's the reality of the situation. Here's like the soliloquy, the monologue that I wanted to get into today. When you look at other paid quarterbacks in the NFL, the gold standard of quarterbacking in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah, Josh Allen.
You look at the numbers, you go, Jalen Hurts has less interceptions than Mahomes does. He must be playing better. Well, let me give you the scoop here. There's a reason the Chiefs are 4-0, right? Mahomes takes out his own best receiver in the game early, right? Makes that mistake.
They're down 10-0 at the time.
Down 10-0 at the time. Nonetheless, takes out his own guy, his own number one receiver. What did they do? They won a football game. Joe Burrow, last year, 4-1 without Jamar Chase. In that span of 5 games, he also lost T. Higgins for 3 of them. You want to guess what his record was? 3-0 in games without T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, going to Baltimore and playing against Pittsburgh, 2 very good defenses. What do $250 million elite quarterbacks do? Josh Allen, for example, lost his offensive coordinator in the middle of the season last year, and you would have never even noticed. Loses his number one wide receiver, the guy that gets all the credit for making Josh Allen who he is today, and he's an MVP candidate. You would never even notice. The difference between those guys and Jalen Hurts falls into a tier for me, I'll get into it in a second, is that when the chips are stacked against them and when they are down, they will win football games. And Jalen Hurts cannot do that. If you look at his record without Lane Johnson on the field, without A.J. Brown on the field, without Devontae Smith on the field, it's bad. And that's fine. Those are very good players. But Jalen Hurts is not some elite level quarterback. It is really looking evident that 2022 was like a broken clock is right twice a day. It's almost like this is almost like the Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz era all over again, in the sense that, yep, we won a Super Bowl. Carson Wentz looked like an MVP. Yes, he got hurt. We'll give this guy his money. Jalen Hurts looks like an MVP, takes us to a Super Bowl, outplays Mahomes in the Super Bowl. We'll give this guy his money. Team doesn't look the same since. It's the same song and dance. And Jalen Hurts is not a guy that when the chips are stacked against him, I can look at him and say, I need you to win me this football game. He still had Goddard on the field, still had Barkley on the field. And what did the offense do? Not shit. And that's going to be the story with Jalen Hurts. If A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are not playing, the offense is not going to do shit, because Jalen Hurts cannot elevate his guys to a Josh Allen, to a Patrick Mahomes, to a when he's healthy Joe Burrow level. He's just not that dude. And that's fine. There are guys in the league. Justin Herbert needs his weapons to win. We've seen it before. All his team gets hurt, can't beat the Chiefs. Oh, well, Trevor Lawrence probably doesn't really have that great of a supporting cast. Joe Burrow, like I said. But yeah, we got to stop. Eagles fans got to let go of 2022. That shit was a mistake. That shit was an accident. That is not who Jalen Hurts is. He is a guy who falls in a very large tier of quarterbacks that can win a Super Bowl if all the pieces are in the right place. He's not an elite level player.
Now, I'm not going to say that he's an elite. Everything that you said, I agree with 90% of it. I'm not going to say he's an elite level quarterback, because I don't think he's an elite level quarterback. If fantasy wise, he's an elite level quarterback. Because
sure, yeah, absolutely. Provides those 1 yard push touchdowns, which yes are great for fantasy, but in reality, they are not like an eye test passing play. They're
correct. However, I will say that Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, and I do think that he's a better quarterback than a lot of the quarterbacks in the league. I would put him roughly in the top 10 area. And as a result, he, especially with the supporting cast that he has around him, I do think that he's a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl. But as you said, and this is the biggest part of it that I agree with you on, is he can win a Super Bowl if all the chips fall correctly. If everyone stays healthy or comes back healthy at this point. Fun fact, I believe the Eagles have 4 wins historically when Lane Johnson misses a game. Obviously, it got worse.
It's something crazy, and I pointed that out to to Tim Hawkins before the game started, I said, without A.J. Brown, without Devontae Smith, or not Devontae Smith, without A.J. Brown and Lane Johnson, I don't think Jalen Hurts has a single win.
Yeah, I don't know the stat about A.J. Brown because he did just win in the Saints game. However, when you don't have Lane Johnson for an entire game, I believe the Eagles historically, even going back to Carson Wentz, historically, I think the Eagles are like 4-20 when Lane Johnson is not at right tackle. Yeah. They got some big shoes to fill when he retires in 2 years.
And that's the right tackle. That's not even like the blind side. That's a right tackle. That is not a skill position play. Like, it is scary how like I said, there's a large tier of quarterbacks that need help to win a Super Bowl. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Jalen Hurts does fall squarely in that like 8 to 16 tier. Like, I would put him in the top half of the NFL of quarterbacks, but we as Eagles fans, people holding on to 2022, that shit looks like an accident. We got to let that go.
I think that was first year or second year under a new coach. Teams didn't really know how to look at him yet. The further the season went, the worse he looked. Now, I will say this. I do not say he's not good, Tim Hawkins. You say, but you do say he's not good. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you rebuttal in a second. You look at 2022, and then you look at last week. You know, he goes 29 for 39. He only had the one interception, 8 incomplete passes. You're thinking to yourself, man, he can really turn it around. He didn't have any touchdowns, but like whatever. You know, he threw for 380 yards, like great, or 308 yards. Great, fantastic. If he can play on this level or something close to this level, the Eagles are going to be really successful. And then he comes out and he goes 18 for 30, 12 incompletions. Again, he didn't throw an interception, but the turnover, as you already pointed out, was a huge turnover based on where we were in the game. We had finally come back. We were down by only 10 points, I believe, at the time. 14. Was it still 14? Either way. And you had an opportunity. Oh, no, it was 12 points because of the 2 point.
No, it was 16 to 30. It was 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you get sacked 6 times, which part of that is Lane Johnson not being in. I will openly admit that, because I think 3 of the sacks came off of Lane Johnson's assignments. And you just look lost for the whole game. You just looked lost. Like, you didn't know where you wanted to go, didn't know where you wanted to be, didn't know if you wanted to run, didn't know if you were sure if you should run. And you got to get past that. Again, I don't know if it's Nick Sirianni in his ear. I don't know. But one of you needs to shut up and let Jalen Hurts be Jalen Hurts. Because, again, that 2022 Jalen Hurts is gone. I agree with you. He got his money. He's probably not looking to play as hard. And I do believe that some players do that. They get their money, and then their attitudes change a little bit. Jalen Hurts might be one of those guys. I really do believe that he's a good quarterback. Like I said, I would definitely put him, like you said, 8 to 15. I would put him 8 to 15, absolutely. I still think he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, and
that's more decisive is my point.
Yeah, and you just got to play better when the chips are stacked against you. How you get into that, firm top. You can consistently lead this team to places when
Sorry.
Dak versus Hurts debate had a good run, but we all know Dak is that guy. No, Dak's in that same tier. Definitely needs help to win a Super Bowl. Definitely can't do it on his own.
I would agree that Dak and Hurts are in the same tier. Absolutely, 100%. I think Geno Smith in Seattle. Let's talk about quarterbacks for, I saw a post earlier today. Baker, Sam Darnold, and Geno Smith are living proof that sometimes quarterbacks are drafted into a really poor system and they need a relocation to show that they're not a bad quarterback. Sam Darnold is lighting the world on fire right now. Baker Mayfield looks like a good quarterback most weeks. And Geno Smith, we know what Geno Smith has done, Pro Bowl quarterback last year, taking the Seahawks to the playoffs 2 years in a row. They are living proof that just because you're drafted by a team doesn't mean you're going to be successful with that team.
Well, I mean, here's the reality of the situation, right? All those guys were top picks in their draft, right? Not necessarily number one, but Geno Smith was the first quarterback off the board. Baker Mayfield was number 1. Sam Darnold was number 3. They all went to really crappy organizations. You know why? Because really crappy organizations suck, and those are the quarterback picks. Yeah. Organizations matter. Development matters. Coaches matter. And good organizations with great leadership at the very top level hire good coaches who can develop people. We watched Carson Wentz develop under Doug Peterson and the offensive coordinator, whose name drastically escapes me from the Super Bowl. God damn.
Oh man, I almost said Shane Steichen. That's not who
No,
it was.
but it's kind of the same deal, right? We lost both our coordinators after that Super Bowl. Then we lose both of the coordinators after this 2022 Super Bowl run, where Shane Steichen and Jalen Hurts look incredible together, and we got nothing. So
that's bothering me. I wanna see who it was.
But yeah, Jalen Hurts to me just falls in a tier of like, he can be good.
Frank Reich.
Yeah, Frank Reich. He can be good if, all of his weapons are healthy and, he has every piece around him. And the Eagles, that being said, the Eagles have a top 3 supporting cast on offense in the NFL. Easy. I mean, I could argue that it's probably the best. I think the 49ers, if they're healthy, are probably the only other one that comes close. But that's a top 3 supporting cast in the NFL. If the Eagles stay healthy for the rest of the season, there is absolutely zero excuses for Jalen Hurts if they do not make a deep run. Zero.
I am right there with you. I think there's absolutely zero reason Jalen Hurts, with the supporting cast the Philadelphia Eagles have, should not be a good quarterback going into the postseason and hopefully deep into the postseason. Obviously, we don't want to have these kinds of conversations every week. We don't have to be beating down the team every week. We want to say good things about the team. Unfortunately, this past week I didn't see anything good. Well, that's not entirely true. 8.4 yards a carry out of Saquon Barkley was kind of nice.
Yeah, well, 50-yard run helps, and actually handing off the football to also really helps.
Yeah, that really does help. Actually, very, very much that helps. All right, I think we beat up Jalen Hurts enough. Let's talk about the impact of missing the 3 guys that we've already talked about: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson, all being out. The Eagles looked like shit.
They're a bottom 7 offense in the NFL without these 3 players.
I'm surprised you give them 7.
I mean, there's like some really bad offenses out there, especially this year where, teams have switched to 2 high safety and nobody can throw the ball. Yeah, but this is like a bottom 7 offense in the NFL, like easy without these 3 players.
Now, for those of you wondering in the comment section, if and when we get these guys back, it is supposed to be all of them come back after the bye week. Obviously, Lane and Devontae Smith with the concussions, you take the extra week to be precautious. You got the bye week coming up. You want to be super safe. A.J. Brown commented after the game that he maybe could have played, but he wasn't 100% sure. So they're going to take the extra week, make sure that he is 100% before he comes back so that the team is healthy and there are no excuses for if they are not successful moving forward. Still kind of sort of pointing fingers at Nick Sirianni because a leader of men, right? You better show us. You better show us.
I completely agree. Like, first off, Smitty and Lane Johnson, it wasn't really a choice, right? They didn't clear concussion protocol. I completely agree with sitting A.J. Brown, knowing you have the bye week next week. But, man, like, good God. Like, this team is just, it's so bad without it. It's just, they are borderline unwatchable. Like, the Titans, yes, the Titans until like the 4th quarter when Tony Pollard broke off that touchdown, or Tony Pollard had a couple of long runs in the second half, and the Dolphins without Tua, the Eagles without these 3 guys. These are all just bad offenses. Anthony Richardson led Colts. They look like a bad offense, but
they do look like a bad offense.
It's abysmal. It's embarrassing. It's shameful that we have to rely on probably 2 of those guys. Like, you could probably Smitty, I love Smitty. He's a fantastic receiver. I think he's the best number 2 in the NFL, but you could probably live without him. These other 2 guys could help out. The fact that we need to rely on these 2 guys to win and can't rely on our quarterback to take a game over to win is sad.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Z-Money, who's available, since you're asking us fantasy questions right now? I'm going to assume guys like Geno are either really cheap or available. Red Rifle's probably available.
I'd be shocked if Geno was still on waivers.
I'd be shocked if Dalton is still on waivers.
Yeah. Some of these odd quarterbacks you really didn't expect coming out here slinging that thing.
Yeah. Thoughts going into the bye week?
I have never seen a team need the bye week in week 5 more than the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles. Never in my life have I seen a team need a bye in week 5 so bad.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't think that I've ever seen a team come out and look so contrast to themselves over the first 4 weeks, right? You come out, you play a good Green Bay team in Sao Paulo, you beat them. It's like, I don't say what you want. They're 2-0 without their starting quarterback. That is a good Green Bay Packers team. You beat them in Sao Paulo, and you look like you're off on the right foot. This is going to be a great season. Then you come out and you lose to the Falcons at home. Defense was really soft, couldn't get any pressure. Vic Fangio, that's another thing. One of my final thoughts is Vic Fangio run defense. But then you go to New Orleans and you have a superior defensive game, even an offensive game that looked really good. You just had a struggle getting in the end zone. And then you follow it up with the shellacking that you just took in Tampa. I don't know that I've ever seen a team in contrast with themselves through the first 4 weeks of a season. And it just amazes me. You're 100% correct. They need the bye week. It's good that it came now. Weird to say week 5, but it's good that it came now. Hopefully they come out of the bye week and they've got all the wheels are turning at the same speed, you know?
Yeah, and the team gets healthy and gets right, and we can hopefully stay healthy-ish the rest of the season.
Tim Hawkins brings up a good point. We haven't really talked about the defense too much. I was going to put Vic Fangio solely in my final thoughts, but we can just talk about the defense.
What defense?
Yeah, exactly. The performance they had in New Orleans was amazing. And I don't know if you felt this way, but I thought to myself, yeah, if Jalen Carter comes out and does this week in and week out, the Eagles are going to be a really good team. Like, you may not need to rely on Bryce Huff, who, by the way, has been non-freaking existent. But if Jalen Carter can take control of football games like he did in New Orleans, and again, that's a good New Orleans team. They're not great, but they're good. They got some holes, but they were putting up 40 points a week prior to you coming in. If Jalen Carter takes control of football games, you have a really good shot at winning games. War of attrition, maybe on Sunday, maybe. I know it was 110 degrees in Tampa on the field. So maybe war of attrition. You know, you're from the Northeast. You don't really have to deal with that weather a lot, really a lot of humidity. But those are all excuses, and I don't want to hear them. I don't want to hear them. You're an NFL football team.
Both teams played in the same conditions.
You get paid to play. End of story. So at the end of the day, defense looked like hammered dog dookie. I know Darius Slay was playing. He was vomiting on the sideline and some stuff like that. He kept trying to play through it. Quinyon Mitchell gives up his first touchdown on the season. And you just can't tackle. You just can't tackle.
I'm glad you said that name. Quinyon Mitchell's the only defensive player that played every snap on Sunday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All 77 of them, which is about 20 too many.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's looking like he's going to be a hella good pick.
To Tim Hawkins' point, can we get Dean out of there yet? I wanted Dean out of there last year.
Who are you going to put there now?
Nakobe Dean is not a good linebacker.
Dude, I'm with you. I'm right there with. I don't want him in there either. But who are you going to put in?
Well, unfortunately, Isaiah Rodgers doesn't exist. Like, I don't know what happened to him. I guess he doesn't play the slot, and we're not moving Quinyon to the slot. So we've got to deal with Avonte Maddox, who is, again, terrible. Would definitely be happy to see him go. I mean, we can't really play the nickel at this point or the dime consistently. I mean, Zach Bond's the only linebacker that does anything.
Hawkins says he'd rather see Kazir White or Trotter Jr. at this point at the linebacker position. I don't think we're going to see White at all. I think there's something going on in the locker room with White, and I don't think we're going to see him. As for Trotter, I would love for Jeremiah Trotter to be a thing, right? Like, I would love for Jeremiah Trotter to be a thing. There's a reason he's on special teams. Now, do I think they should give him a shot? Yeah, sure. He can't be any worse than Nakobe Dean at this point, right? Like, I would full-heartedly agree that, yes, I know. I'm also a Dogs fan. Brian, thank you for joining us here. He says he's disappointed in
the Eagles that were once Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm disappointed in the Bulldogs anyway. Yeah. But you got to tackle. At the end of the day, I don't care war of attrition or not. You got to tackle. I don't know what drills are running in camp or in practice, but you got to tackle. Pretty sure when you join Pee Wee ball, the first thing they teach you how to do is tackle. But hey, what do I know, right? Let's get some closing thoughts before we get out of here.
Need the bye week. Go get healthy. Go, hang out, spend time with your family, whatever you need to do. But starting next Monday, come ready for that walkthrough. There better be better be something different in week 6.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I 100% agree. Go get right, come back right, play better.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Let's see if this works.
We're trying something out new. The software says this works, so we're going to try it.
Yep, software says it works. So thank you for joining us here on B.S.ing Sports, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Thank you and have a good night.